Christina, how's it going?
Hey, Ron, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Glad you're able to spend some time with us today at the summit to discuss how to use local media in order to build awareness for your brand, especially for speakers and solopreneurs and other entrepreneurs. Um, yeah, so great. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got into PR for anyone.
Yeah, that was a total accident. I had broken my foot, was put in one of those big, awful black medical boots, and I invented a fashion line for them. And I had owned a retail store. I'm like, I've got this. This is so easy. Well, it wasn't so easy. So I had hired a coach to help me through this. And I say regrettably, he stole $24,000 from me. But had he not done that, I wouldn't have had to learn everything that I now do in my business every day. And that was 14 years ago. So I have, I came out on the good side of that. But having to promote this product that didn't exist before, I didn't know how to do it because I didn't have any money left. I couldn't pay for advertising. And I just figured out PR and I systematized it, and I've got a system that works. And I was like, knock on wood when I'm in here, there's no wood, but nobody has ever said to me, Christina, I tried this exactly what you said and it didn't work, because it does work, because I help you figure out the best place for you to be. And local's easy. Local media loves to cover local people. The hardest, if you're watching and you live in New York City, it's going to be a little tougher because that's the number one market in the country. But it's doable. It's completely doable. You just have to have a newsworthy story that makes them want to say yes.
So I think you said something that was very interesting to me because I've tried to pay other PR people and they just seems like it was them selling me a product more than a service. So it was like, hey, we could do this and we could do that. And I'm like, but like I could Google how to do a press release, right? I could
And
Google
wait,
some of these things.
stop. I have to get on my soapbox right there. Don't send press releases. They do not work. It is a waste of money. No journalist is reading a press release off the wire, period. And I've interviewed so many of them. It used to be that was gold. The PR firms, you only put really valuable news out on the wires. So the papers, everybody would pick that up. Well, now with the internet, they're a dime a dozen. Anyone can do it. It's great for SEO, but don't use it if you think that's how you're going to get PR, because you're not. And I'll get on my higher soapbox that when you do a press release and you pay for it, it gets housed on servers. So you're going to get a report that says you were in 250 places. You were not in the media there. You can't say, as seen on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. They took your press release and they put it on a server for 48 hours. That's all that is. If you're going to say, as seen on, you better have a link to you on ABC. I was on Fox this week. You can click that and you can see it on my website. If it was an article, have a PDF of that article or link to the Wall Street Journal, whoever it is. But just because you sent out a press release does not mean you've been in the media. And I am done.
No, no, no. This is why I brought you.
Yeah.
This is why you're here because I think we've all fallen victim to those other products where it's really not a service or me actually getting real media. It's like you said, they put me on some server and then a week later, I can't even find it because they've deleted the server. Right.
Right.
And,
Exactly. Yep.
and it's like, oh, this was kind of we're in a political season. So it was fake news in some ways.
It's
Right.
fake news. It is fake
And
news.
okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't the only one that felt that way because I'm like, dude, this drove no traffic. It drove nobody to
No.
my website. It didn't do anything as far as driving me customers. It just got me some vanity metrics so I can put some logos that
But
don't
you
matter.
shouldn't even put the logos, because I met a woman who wanted to work with me and I got to her website and she had 200 logos. I was like, oh my gosh, you are amazing. Congratulations. You worked so hard. This is great. No, the company said with the press release being housed, she could use all those logos. But I'm like, no, 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 no. You were not interviewed. That's what media is. I'm going to tell you how you can get interviewed in your local media, on TV, and your, the local rags. And some people are like, oh, I don't want to be in my little connection or the little ones. Those are the most read publications there are.
Yeah. We call it the speaker flywheel, right?
Okay.
Because the person can use smaller stages to get larger stages, whether it's a publication, a podcast, a speaking opportunity. It's about building momentum, right? So I totally agree with you. I'm glad to hear, because I don't know PR that well. I'm glad to hear someone who's a professional in that area talk about the same things that we talk about, which is don't devalue the smaller things, right?
Don't.
The world used to be, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, the world used to be run by megaphones, right? When there were only 3 TV channels, you wanted to be on one of ABC, CBS, NBC, or something like that, right? But now the world is it's not run by those megaphones anymore. It's run by the microphones, the little niche markets, the little podcast, the little magazine, the little newsletter that has a well-targeted audience that needs your stuff versus Oprah's audience of 5 million, but only 10,000 of them care about what I'm talking about.
Well, I was going to say exactly that. Don't discount the small podcast, because if they have 1,000 downloads, but it's 1,000 of your ideal customer and 1,000 people are going to opt into your offer, and then 10% are going to buy, 20% are going to buy, why not? Go on Joe Rogan, you can just say, hey, I was on the most popular podcast, but you probably aren't going to get any business from that.
Yeah, you may be the worst episode for him too, because nobody knows you.
Exactly.
So how does anyone get PR? Your product is called PR for anyone. Your service is PR for anyone. How does it work for anyone? So let's take me, for example. Speaker Hub is a company that was in Belgium, right? And it never did anything in the US. If I wanted to get our companies into more press and get more PR for us in the United States, what would be your suggestion?
So I know you brought me on to talk about local. That's probably not a local story, other than local businessman buys this company from Belgium.
Well, let's start there first. Let's start there first and then go to the bigger one.
And that's a maybe. Is it an exciting story? So this is the litmus test for all of you watching. Would you be excited about it? If it wasn't you and you were watching TV at night, would you stay to watch that story? You got to think about what you're watching. A lot of my clients, I'm like, okay, we've got to target the morning shows, not, the hardcore news, because it's not hardcore news. You have to know where you fit in the puzzle. And at the end of the day, all PR, the only thing the journalist cares about is value to their audience. So if whoever you're pitching, do they care? Do they have a business audience? Now, this could be a great story for the paper, the local paper in the business section. Show some numbers. We've got, 500,000 speakers in our thing. Now we're bringing it to the US, and that's pretty cool. I don't know how many speakers you have. I'm making that up, but that's a business story. That's not a ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox story. Local, maybe in a small market, but you've got to know where you fit in the PR puzzle. What works? And I know we're talking to speakers. You're likely not going to get booked in the media on TV as a speaker. What's your platform? What's your bigger story? What value can you provide? And I love to use this as an example. I had a client in California, and she owned, I can't remember, it was 14 or 17 homeless shelters. And they were all under this umbrella name, Grandma's House of Hope. And when we started working together, she said, I just want Grandma's House of Hope in the media. And I said, well, that's great. We could probably do it once a year, maybe twice a year. I said, I want to make you the expert in homelessness. I want you to be the go-to person. And she's like, oh, no. I just want... Anyway, long story short, I created that for her. She became the expert in homelessness. So anytime there was an issue in a political race, when COVID hit and the kids couldn't go back to school, a law had changed that said that if you had chemotherapy, you had to have an address. Like the hospital couldn't release you unless you had an address. So she talked about her one homeless shelter that was for cancer patients. So we thought of it in a bigger picture, making her that expert in homelessness, not just her charity. And she was on TV all the time.
Wait a minute. I think I just had a light bulb went off in my brain. I
I love when that happens.
So if I'm trying to get public relations stuff done, I shouldn't treat it like advertising, right? Because wanting to get my business out there, that's like an ad. I could buy an ad on TV about my business. What I really want to do is to be positioned as the thought leader in a particular niche. So then when they have questions, they come to me versus me having to basically say, hey, talk about my business, talk about my business. Is that, because that's what I heard. Because I've never been presented with that before. So now I'm like, oh, I get it. But I want to make sure I'm getting the right thing.
Me. This is, what can we do for them? And I have a client, Gene, who's a former SWAT commander, and he talks about workplace safety, school safety. And now, he's been pitching and he's been getting a ton of stuff. Now they're all coming to him because they're finding him online. So he was just on Good Morning America. He was just on KTLA, and he sent me an email and he goes, oh my God, like, this is unbelievable. I can't believe this is happening. I'm like, this is what we worked towards. This is what we built, is to position you. So this is exactly it. So what is your topic, your speaker topic? What do you do? And what's that value you can bring to the audience? Maybe it's even inspirational speakers. What are 3 tips for moms taking their kids off to school on day 1? How can they get through that? There's so many things you have to think about, but you have to think about who's the audience and why do they care about what you're talking about?
Okay. So if I had to sum this up in just the little part that you talked about there, because as we keep going, number 1, it's not about me, right? So number 2, I should be thinking about how I can serve the audience, right? And then what's my area of expertise, how I'm going to serve that audience. Is that fair?
And think of it on the 40,000 foot level. Think, and I want you to niche. That's really, really important too. But look at the big picture. Like with Janae, it wasn't her homeless shelter, her foundation, her nonprofit. It was because when she's up here talking about the whole problem in general, guess what's on the thing on the TV? Grandma's House of Hope. So she's getting constant. You don't have to sell yourself when you're on TV. I'm on TV every single month. They're always like, "Where's your what's your podcast? What's your, website?" And they put the screen up at the end that drives everybody to me. I don't have to say it, and people don't want to hear you say it. They don't want to hear you selling on local television. They want to hear what you have to say that can help them.
Okay, all right. And what's next? So now I've figured out, okay, this is my message. This is my audience. This is how I can help serve the bigger community with an interesting story. What do I do next?
Who do you pitch? You got to find the right person. You don't want to pitch your business story to the food editor just because you're excited you found the food editor. But it's not hard to find who to pitch. Pick up the phone, call people. Nobody calls anymore. I always joke with the phone. I'm like, this is used for this, not just this. It really works. So, and my clients all laugh. I'm like, we're all going to pick up our phones right now and call. But use your phones. Call, ask who would cover a story related to X. Who do I send the email to? It's not hard.
No, that's pretty cool. So is it the same process on a larger basis or on a national basis, or is it the same thing?
Yeah. So I call it the Get PR Famous formula. It's 3 steps. You want to be newsworthy, which is, what is that the media wants? And newsjacking is really important. Newsjacking is what's happening right now in the world that you can talk about. Now, right now in our world, it's a lot of politics. I personally like to stay away from it. But for example, I'm starting to work with a branding company because we could talk about the two sides and what things do for their brand. That whenever they speak, whenever they open their mouth, like what did that do to their brand? That something like that, you're doing it on both sides. And again, that's just my personal preference. But there's always breaking news. What is that news? Celebrity sells. The media love. J-Lo and Ben Affleck are in my feed every single day. Now they had lunch together, even though they're divorcing. What can you do to talk about that? If that's in your wheelhouse, pitch them. And you hear it all the time. Here's a divorce attorney who's not representing X, Y, and Z. Media loves that. So that's newsjacking. Then you need a good hook. What's the subject line? Don't say, I have a story idea for you. Boring. And then find the right journalist. Pick up the phone, use Google. It's not hard to find the right person to pitch. The media is not hiding from us. They're 24/7, 365. You brought up that, we used to have, when I was a kid, 3 stations, and you actually had to get up and turn the channel. You got 1 newspaper a day. I mean, that was it. Now we're inundated. Give them good stories. They will say yes.
So if I was going to write a pitch, I just want to kind of think about this. Like, I shouldn't say, hey, I have a story for you. Just what's the first line? What should I say in the first line?
Well, what's the value to their audience?
Okay. All right.
That
makes sense.
What are they going to look at and be like, oh, my audience is going to love that. I need to read this. And don't use clickbait, please. That's like I won't get on that soapbox, but you don't like clickbait. I don't like clickbait. Make it real to the story.
So what are the 3 frequently asked questions that you get all the time as a PR expert?
Most people are afraid. They're just afraid to do it. And that's one of the first things we do is mindset. I'm not asking you to pitch something that you don't know about. I'm not saying, Ron, there's a widget right there. You're going to go on television and talk about that. And you're like, what do you mean, Christina? I don't know anything about the widget. No, it's all here. It's your brilliance. It's your gift. And here's the thing. If you don't know the answer, it's okay to say, Ron, that's a great question. I'm really not sure about that. And then go into something else. That's okay. That's better than trying to be like, oh God, I have to answer. What should I say? What should I do? Then you're going to have a terrible interview. It's okay to do that. But that's really the biggest thing, is that fear of, why would they want me? And especially people new in the industry, new in an industry. I worked with a guy who had his real estate license, I don't know, for 2 weeks. And he came up to me. I did a training. I sold my program. And he's like, I want to work with you. I'm going to pitch the Washington Post. I'm like, Dustin, I love you. Like, go, go, go. Probably won't happen out of the gate, but I love that that's what you think of. Well, guess what? It happened out of the gate. He pitched this great story. So he was a store manager at Bed Bath Beyond. And he was really good at Facebook ads. His store was like one of the top stores because of his Facebook ads. So he pitched the Washington Post about, and it was actually funny, it was a past election, but if they can win an election on Facebook ads, you should be able to sell your house the same way. And they did a whole article about using social media and Facebook ads to sell homes and how that was like a new marketing technique. And so I texted him, it was like over the holidays, and I said, hey, what's the ROI, on that article you got? So he got $5 million plus listings in 6 weeks from one article. He's now one of the top teams in his area. And I saw him maybe a year or 2 after that. And I'm like, Dustin, why don't you get more press? He goes, I don't need to. I take that one article with me every appointment I have, and it wins me the listing. So it might be all you need is just one.
No, that makes sense. And what are some of the things you wished people would ask when they were thinking about PR or working with someone like you?
Yeah, well, I brought it up before, making it about you. It's not about you. Everybody, I've got to tell them my website. I've got to, me. It will happen. It will happen organically. I promise. I have never been on a media outlet that didn't show how to get in contact with me, ever. And when you go in and you're a really good guest, they invite you back. So I remember the first time I went on locally, I don't know, it's probably been 8 years now. And they're like, oh my gosh, the control room loved you. Like, come back anytime. Because I was fun and personable and I wasn't selling. And, we laughed. And I was just on last week. I laughed until I almost cried. I thought I was going to pee my pants. It was so funny because I showed some tailgating stuff and I had it's a fire, like a grill gun. And I knew the guy that I'm with, I've been with him a lot, and I knew he was going to love it. He's like shooting everyone, like fire everywhere. I was like, oh my
A
God.
flamethrower. You brought a
I brought
flamethrower.
Well, I turned him into one. And the picture they used to promote the episode is me like full on belly laugh. Like, it's such a good hook. Like, what is she laughing that hard about with him, holding this thing? But that's what they want. They need, especially for TV, they need good, engaging stories. And if you can give, your local newspapers are small. You might have an editor and a reporter, and that's it. So if you can be that go-to expert for them, and they know you're not going to just push salesy, that you're going to give good content and you're the go-to resource. And I always say, call them and say, hey, like, I'll use real estate as an example because I've said it. I've been in the real estate industry here for 30 years. If you need anybody in this space, if you need a roofer, if you need a landscaper, anybody to talk about real estate, mortgage, title, just call me. I have a Rolodex full. I'm happy to help you. And guess what happens then? It keeps you front of mind of them for all their stories. Excuse me. And that actually happened to me with my Fox anchor. I had been on a couple times. Again, I only have so many things I could do. At that time, it was with the boot. But I would send her story ideas all the time. Women that I met, great entrepreneurial stories. Her favorite story she ever did, I sent her. So then she got a nationally syndicated television show about how do you take an idea from napkin to store shelves. Guess who she used? Me, because I was front of mind. She knew I was good. I was easy. I'm reliable. That's really important with media too. I'm not a prima donna. Like, don't go to the television station all hoity. Like, I go in, I'm giving everybody hugs. They love me. I love them. It's just, you want to become part of their family, not like you're superior to them. And that's really important because it really happens a lot and you won't get invited back.
How important are those relationships?
Huge.
Instead of just pitching. Sometimes people, hey, I want to be on your show. It's like, hey, how about we just hop on an intro call to see if it makes sense? Like, that's kind of my attitude.
So I will tell you, they're very busy for that intro call. But what you could do is start to build a relationship in that you say, hey, I love the show. I watch it all the time. I see you cover different experts in this topic. I just want you to know, here are, 4 categories. I hope it's okay. I'm going to start sending you pitches that I think would really be good for your audience. You can do that. That's a great way to start.
No, that makes sense. So just making them aware that they should expect more than one email from you.
Yes. Yeah. And, follow them on social media. Not Facebook, that's more personal, but see if they're on X, see if they're on Instagram, LinkedIn, comment on their stuff, share their stuff. They know who's doing that. I promise you.
No, that totally makes sense. What did I miss?
The last thing is you don't want to tell them everything in the pitch. So I get this from my clients. They're like, Christina, I can't write an 800-word article every single month. I'm like, no. You're not writing the article. You are pitching yourself as the expert for the journalist to write the article. So that's really important. Your pitches need to be short and sweet. And I always put yourself in the place of somebody else before you do something. In your email box, do you read this email, the short one, or do you read the one that's this long? I'll flag that one. I might never get back to it. Don't tell me too much. You'll have the opportunity in the interview to share what you need to share. Share the best of the best, and that's it.
And can anyone do this?
Anyone can do it. You have to know where you're going to be good, though. And you know what? If this doesn't make you comfortable, don't pitch TV. I started out doing podcasts, little podcasts, just to get my feet wet. And I would be in my basement. And I'd be so nervous and I'd be guzzling water in between, I'd have such dry mouth. So in between questions, and we've all been there. Everyone gets nervous. Now I'm on TV every month. So it's a progression. Go where you're comfortable. If you're comfortable talking about it to somebody, a journalist who's going to, be typing up the story, then go for print. If you want to be anonymous in your basement on a podcast where nobody can see your face and it's just your voice and you can drink water in between questions, do that. Go where you're comfortable, where the best place for you is.
No, that makes sense. I like that. Because I think sometimes it feels a bit untouchable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's always sold to us as you need this magic key, and if you turn this knob and you have this key, then reporters appear, and then you're getting chased around by the paparazzi like Kim Kardashian. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't really want any of that. I just really want to let people know I can help them.
And that's all you need to do. And if it fits, you got to know the demographic of the media outlet that you're pitching. In terms of like national, because more people would recognize this, you've got AARP and you've got BuzzFeed. You're not going to pitch an article to AARP about 20-year-olds unless it's how grandparents are helping 20-year-olds buy houses by helping, fund it or something like that. Read the room, know the media outlet that you're pitching. Like, it's really important to go that extra step to do that. That will get you one step closer to the yes.
Okay. All right. And so how does someone work with you? What's the process like to work with you?
Yeah. So I have a digital product, prfasttrack.com. And then we can work one-on-one together where I do not pitch for my clients. I teach them how to do it. I hand them everything on a silver platter, everything we've talked about. And like, here you go, Ron. Now, and while we're together, you're implementing. So I just wrapped up with a client last week and she literally hit send and she got NBC and ABC. So 2 television appearances. So we come up with what's a good story idea. It's relevant. It's timely. How do we write it? I write your pitches for you. Everything's recorded. Everything's in a Google Drive. You have it forever. So that's the 2 ways. And go to my website, ChristinaDaves.com. And it's all, and I do like for corporate, I do corporate training. People bring people in using ChatGPT as your marketing assistant. That's part of PR Fast Track. But some people, I've helped a lot of companies with their marketing people get things done a lot faster.
So I have another question. Does this work for introverts?
Yeah, it does. But you're going to have to, if this is what you want, you're going to have to figure out how to get to that interview part of it. And you know what? If you're a big introvert, TV's probably not for you. It's okay. That's fine. You don't need to be on TV. Like I said, do the podcasts. And if you can get your mind wrapped around, and I work with my clients on this, that even as an introvert, you have a gift. You are good at what you do and you love what you do. So why wouldn't you want to share it with people? And there's no better way to get more visible, more credible, more authority than media. So if you want to grow your business, I would figure out how to give an interview.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm probably more of an extrovert, but I haven't always been. I would say I evolved because I used to be much more quiet, much more, I think it's a confidence with age thing too. I'm almost 60. I don't really care anymore.
No, it makes sense.
What's the worst anyone's going to tell me? No, I got that. I've heard a lot of no's in my life.
No, I think that makes sense. I think we're kind of both. I think most people have both sides, depending on where they've become comfortable. I think we become more extroverted as we get comfortable with doing something, because our confidence goes up and we don't have to kind of shy away. So I think most speakers are a little bit of both. They're extroverted on stage, but when they walk into an area that they don't know, maybe PR or marketing or sales or something, they kind of ball up a little bit because no one has simplified it. And I think what you talked about today really made it easy to understand without all the complicated things that I think are kind of not honest, and it's not real news. It's just, they put me on this thing so I could have this vanity picture, but it's really not helping anyone because they didn't see it. And it's also not
And
helping
yeah,
anyone because,
it's
I'm not
all,
able to help them either.
it's, and I love that you brought that up, that fake credibility that so many people are teaching. And I did a bunch of posts that went, people loved it. I was with the Blake Shelton cutout, all about fake credibility, and Brad Pitt in Paris in the Wax Museum. But that's not real. Don't go spend whatever to rent the outside of a private jet to take a picture to make it look like you're rich and famous, or rent a Maserati in Miami, or do you. Be authentic, be real. People want to work, and they're going to see right through it once they start working with you. No question. And same thing with the
100%.
media. Don't be somebody you're not. Don't pitch things that you can't talk about. They need all of us. Every single one of us has a story for the media, period. We all have a story. So it's just learning how to give them the right story that's going to get you the yes.
You made me think about something about authenticity. I was on a call with someone about a week ago, and they had on this wig. It was like a colorful wig or something. And I just asked him, I said, "Is this really you?" And he was like, "Well, I think it's like a gimmick. It makes me stand out." I said, "But at what point does this get tired? Like,
Right.
do you really want to be the guy that has to wear this forever?" And he's
Right.
like, "Yeah, I didn't think about it." I'm like, "Just be you, man. Like, you're already cool without this goofy wig on. Like,
Right.
this is gonna run its
Just do
course."
you.
Yeah, and I think that's a constant reminder of being authentic. Whether everybody doesn't have to jump on the table and scream like a professional wrestler, but you also don't have to be quiet like Penn and Teller either. You can make
Right.
it work both ways. So,
Right. I agree.
any final comments or advice as we bring it
Yeah.
to a close?
Just do it. The media needs you. Do it. Get used to it. Practice. I'd say you'll probably get no's at the beginning, but like I said, my client last week got 2 yeses from one email. So I'm like, anything is possible. You've got to have a good story and know who to pitch it, who the right person to pitch it to is, and that it fits with that outlet, and then it's valuable. And that's how it works. So, and if you don't do it, it's never going to happen.
No, I think that's the story of life, right? You can't win if you never get in the game. So, I think that's it. So, I really appreciate you taking the time to share this with our audience. And PR truly is for anyone when you explain it. A lot of people kind of put like, you almost feel like you're talking to a gatekeeper, as if like, "Hey, I can get you in." And it's like, but when I talked to Christina, she didn't make it feel like that. I
You
like that.
and know that I walk the walk. I'm not a publicist. I don't come from that world. I figured it out, and I pitch myself all the time. I was just in AARP magazine, #1 most circulated magazine in the country. My podcast is talked about every single month on TV. I do different lifestyle segments. This year I've been in Forbes, Fortune. Like, I'm doing this too. I practice everything that I share with you guys. It works.
No, that's cool. Well, if they're smart, they'll follow you and
Yeah.
they'll use your stuff. Because I mean, I've seen all the articles. That's why I wanted to have you on. I've seen all the news videos and everything. So I knew you were legit
Yeah.
versus some of the other stuff. So
Well,
thanks
thank
again.
you.
I really
Thank
appreciate it.
you.